So we all saw the chilling video in New York City the other day. And wasn't it yesterday, actually? The early morning hours of CEO Brian Thompson as he's in Midtown Manhattan and he gets gunned down in what was a hit. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. This was not a random attack. How do we know? Well, we don't know a lot about the individual who committed this horrific crime, but here's what we do know. He was staking him out. And then there were messages that said delay and depose on the shell casings that were found at the scene of the crime. And it's a chilling video, and I watched it. And the reason why I watched it is not because I enjoy watching people get killed. I watched it so that I could describe it to you and talk about it. And Brian Thompson, in the early morning hours, was getting ready to be an honorary speaker at an event. He was there earlier outside the hotel preparing. That's why he arrived early. This guy who killed him knew exactly where he was going to be. He showed up about 5 to 10 minutes before he saw Brian Thompson. You see him wearing a hood, disguising his face. He also had a silencer on the weapon, and that's why his gun jammed up several times. But this guy was a pro. Most people who are not extremely good with guns, their gun jams up, they panic. They don't know how to reset the gun. This guy was able to do it in under a second. He did it 3 times. And the first shots hit Brian Thompson in the leg. And then when Brian Thompson stumbled, and he did look behind him, he knew exactly what was going on in a sense that he knew that he was probably going to die. He looked behind him and he saw the gunman. And then the fatal shot that hit him in the back through his chest. And he was pronounced dead a short time later. Police arrived. They're performing CPR. And they're trying to save his life. And sadly, they were unsuccessful. The gunman is still on the loose. Why do I say he was a pro? Besides, clearly, in my opinion, at least appearing to be a marksman, he knows in Manhattan, if you're driving a vehicle, there's going to be traffic. And, when you're on a bicycle, a lot easier to get to where you needed to go. He went straight to Central Park. Why? Police aren't saying. But I would be led to believe and speculate that he changed clothing and he got out of there and he got out of Dodge. Now, there is some evidence that he left behind, including a water bottle. He had gone to Starbucks about an hour before the shooting. And there's video of him, but he was disguising his face. When he was in Starbucks, he bought a few granola bars and a bottled water. He left the bottled water. Police believe he dropped the bottled water and a phone that they believe was his. So I do believe eventually this guy will get caught. There's too much information out there. He will get caught. The problem is it's tough to find him in New York City where there's millions and millions of people in a small proximity. What I do find interesting and sad about this story in the same way is that this guy who he killed, Brian Thompson, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, did not deserve this to happen. I feel for his family and friends. And regardless of what you might think of him and regardless of what crimes he may or may not have committed, he did not deserve to be executed like this. Now, if you want to know a little bit about his history, I'll tell you. Doesn't mean I'm defending the actions. But Brian Thompson was under investigation from the DOJ for insider trading. He dumped his stocks shortly before. Many of those investors lost tons of money. And that's why the DOJ was investigating him. He's a guy with a very checkered past that allegedly stole a lot of money from a lot of people. And the business practices at UnitedHealthcare were very sketchy at a minimum. I know that there are a lot of people in this country that are very upset at UnitedHealthcare. I spoke to a mother the other day about this situation where her son had just had heart surgery and UnitedHealthcare did not permit him to be in the hospital overnight. My understanding also is when people were filing healthcare claims, it was mostly computer generated, and there were a lot of mistakes that were made. Computer generated, when you're dealing with people's lives, is not a good thing. And I understand when you're an insurance company, whether it be car insurance, healthcare, it's a business. I understand that. You need to make money. You need to take care of your shareholders. I understand that. But we're also dealing with human beings. People's lives are at stake. And while it is a business, we also have to be human beings. And I think we've lost that in society. And I think this guy, Brian Thompson, who is now dead tragically, and this is just my personal opinion, and I am not condoning what took place. I want to be very clear on that. It's horrible. He didn't deserve this. I feel for his family. The guy had kids. They did nothing wrong. But I believe when you look at Brian Thompson's actions, I believe he lacked a moral compass. Now, moving forward, I think a lot of CEOs of these types of companies are going to need some better security. This can't happen. And I hope that they find the person that's responsible for this. But this guy had a very checkered past. With that being said, I would, and again, I'm speculating here, I would be shocked to find out that this guy acted alone. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that this was a paid hit. Again, I don't have any evidence to prove it, but I would find it hard to believe that just one crazed lunatic happened to be a marksman, happened to, had the wherewithal to how to shoot a weapon and how to get out of there on a bicycle. And he knew the logistics. He had clearly some intelligence on where this guy was and where he was going to be going and what would be the best time to commit this horrible crime. I don't believe he worked alone. I believe he was probably a paid hitman. We're going to find out, and I hope they find this guy. But this is a horrible, horrible situation. And it's scary.